there in Zoom space. This is the book. This is I don't know if it's reversed or you could see it right way, but it's the 39 Melachot by Rabbi David Ribiat.
Oh, we have that.
Well, we should bring it in next time because
There
it
you
is a
go.
fantastic book, and it's actually the one we're doing right now. Okay, so
Okay.
so we started last time with this is okay. It's a little slow to start because this volume, the first volume, is basically a series of introductions, and they're Have you seen this? You want to take a look at it for a second?
Yeah.
Okay, so it has a series of introductions that are necessary to create the conceptual framework for the halachot that we work with on Shabbat. So it's going to be a little slow at this point. So last time we started off with, he brought various chazals to describe how serious and important Shabbat, Shmir Shabbos is, and the different benefits, different benefits and lo aleinu punishments that one can incur for keeping Shabbos the way it's meant to and honoring the Shabbos. And we spent a moment or two last time talking about how what Shabbos is, what the significance of keeping Shabbos is, why we do it, and how it is so essential to what it means to be a Jew, if you'll recall. So we didn't finish. This is unpleasant, some of these last things. These are just talking about the punishments of not keeping Shabbos, but it's Torah, and Chazal feel it's important for us to know. So, yes.
Can I tell you a quick story about Shabbos?
Don't tell me a quick story. If you're going to tell me a quick story, tell everybody a quick story.
Everyone. So, I was at an alumni event many years ago from Telzingen, and one of the speakers said that talked about Shabbos, and he talked about chinuch. And he said that there was a story where, way back when in Europe, one of the students of a certain yeshiva was Mechal Shabbos. He was in violation of certain Shabbat rules. And he was brought before the Rosh Yeshiva, the head of the yeshiva. And the Rosh Yeshiva ranked him out. Said, kind of a Jew are you? Like, it's terrible, don't you know? You should know better, blah, blah, blah. And developed, they say that this student went on to become Leon Trotsky because he didn't, he was this brilliant kid was mistreated. And then they tell a similar story of another student who also was in violation of certain Shabbat rules, and he was also brought to the Rosh Yeshiva. This one was the Chafetz Chaim, right? And the kid came out. So in the first story, the kid came out really, very upset and went on to kind of whatever. In the second story, the kid was. The kid went on to become the Rosh Yeshiva and the Chafetz Chaim. I'm getting myself confused there. But basically, the Rosh Yeshiva, the Chafetz Chaim basically was crying when he heard that this kid was in violation of Shabbos. And when he came out being upset, he was not upset because he was being ranked out. He was upset. He was crying because of understanding how important Shabbat is. I wasn't in the Chafetz Chaim's room, so I don't quite get how important it was to the Chafetz Chaim, but evidently Chafetz Chaim didn't say anything to him in terms of, oh, you're bad, this and that. He just sort of cried in a way that that the student kind of got that how important Shabbat was. So I wish I was there.
I've heard different versions of that story, and the imagery, the way I was told was, I don't remember, I heard a story, I don't remember it was a bacher or a shopkeeper, but he sat across from the Chafetz Chaim. The Chafetz Chaim held his hand, and he said, Shabbos. And his tears were coming out and falling on his hand.
Right.
And he said, Shabbos, Shabbos, and he sobbed. And the tears he was holding his hand, and it was getting wet. And that's what I heard, how it was described.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you, yeah. Okay, so I just want to finish some of the scary things that Chazal want to warn us about. We said, I just want to recap briefly the good stuff, right? Hashem fulfills the will of one who keeps Shabbos from the Medrash Tanchuma. Financial success and security, a person is deemed worthy of attaining wealth in the merit of Shabbos observance. In the merit of Shabbos observance, Hashem sends success and blessing to one's endeavors. That's from the Chafetz Chaim. The Chafetz Chaim worked very, very hard to uplift Shmir Shabbos in his generation. He wrote a lot of books and worked for the the soldiers that were conscripted, etc., etc. He went around. One of the things he did was he wrote a lot about Shabbos. Shabbos, your observance of Shabbos becomes an advocate on high. It's a powerful advocate for those who abide by its laws. It protects and forgives from sin. One who keeps Shabbos will be protected and distanced from sin, and one who keeps Shabbos can be forgiven for all of his sins, even if he is guilty of idolatry. I believe the Chazal say idolatry of the generation of Enosh. Not all idolatry, but that's, huh?
Shituf.
That's what it means.
They used to worship the ring around the sun.
When you're touching up the avodah zarah of Enosh or this Chazal?
I'm saying the Zarah of Enosh is Shituf.
It says Oz hechelu lekro b'shem Hashem. The Rambam in Hilchot Avodah Zarah says that they basically could not. Okay, that's what you're saying, Shituf. Meaning because they couldn't approach God directly, so they said we'll afford honor to His servants, the sun and the moon, and that became ultimately Avodah Zarah, meaning they forgot about it. Right? Yeah. So, I'm just noting that this, in its original, it means actually that kind of Avodah Zarah. Meaning somebody who worships Avodah Zarah and also keeps Shabbos, he's just schizophrenic. But if a guy shows how on Shabbos he's really everything is really out of an awareness of God created the world and he's partnering with Him, then it undermines that and kind of proves that he's really connected. Okay, he acquires Yiras Shamayim. This is critical because you got nothing without Yiras Shamayim, and everything we do is Yiras Shamayim. Like we should cry that we have Yiras Shamayim to keep the mitzvot. And if a person's really serious, they'll do what they have to do to acquire Yiras Shamayim. That's a great way anyway to get into Shabbos, because it's not just for the benefit of Yiras Shamayim, but somebody who approaches their involvement in Shabbos as an exercise of Yiras Shamayim and understands that the Yiras Shamayim is really about connecting to Hashem. It's not about a behavioral thing, how you have to be, but it's a necessary. That's your connection to Hashem is rooted in your anava, which is rooted in your Yiras Shamayim. Shabbos is an absolute wonderful opportunity. It is the gym of that. Okay, so one who keeps Shabbos will merit Yiras Shamayim. That's a Gemara in Yevamos. It brings redemption. If all of Israel were to observe 2 consecutive Shabbatot properly, the redemption would immediately follow. That's a famous Chazal. There's so much to talk about there. I don't know if that's pshat, but it says that Yisrael will only be redeemed in the merit of Shabbos observance. In the Mechilta it says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to Am Yisrael, if you will keep the Shabbos, I will draw in your exile. And now we have come to the negatives, the severe punishments for Shabbos desecration.
Increase our Yad Shamayim.
Sorry?
It's just to increase our Yad Shamayim.
Yes, absolutely. Or this is actually Yiras HaOnesh. Just as Shabbos is the symbol of creation, that you're testifying that God created the world and of His dominion, so conversely, its desecration is essentially a manifest denial and repudiation of this most eminent of truths. Meaning, if you're basically, it's black or white. You're either on the bus or you're basically standing against that. So the Talmud states that public Shabbos desecration is tantamount to heresy. One who knowingly desecrates Shabbos is liable to get the death penalty under the ruling of a Sanhedrin, or to die young by divine retribution where there's no qualified Sanhedrin. The following are quotations from various Talmudic and other sources on the severe penalties for Shabbos desecration. Destructive fires and loss of livelihood. Destructive blazes are prevalent only where there's Shabbos desecration. The Gemara says that. The Gemara says straight out that you can assume, when there are destructive blazes, that means that Shabbos was not honored the way it should. Homes are destroyed by fire due to Chilul Shabbos. People's livelihoods are lost as a result of Shabbos desecration. That's also from the Chafetz Chaim. Even a non-malacha business occupation, meaning something that is only referred to, we're going to talk about this later, as mimtso cheftzecho. So that's from the words of the Navi, that you can't, things that even not aser dioraita, that are business related, that are forbidden from mimtso cheftzecha. So they also they have a negative. Somebody who violates that can affect somebody's business. Businesses go bankrupt because the proprietors supervise their business affairs or plan business deals on Shabbos. Okay, this is a quote from the Chafetz Chaim in English. And let not a man wonder how it is that we see many Shabbos desecrators violating the Shabbos with ease, yet they seem to succeed in their endeavors, and their fortunes smile upon them. Yet, if one pauses to reflect upon these things, and follows the careers of such persons over the passage of years, one will almost invariably perceive a pattern. Sooner or later, their time runs out. The accrued largesse of the Machal Shabbos evaporates into oblivion, and he suffers the bitter plight of poverty. Even in those rare cases where their wealth seems secured, it is only to their eternal doom. Their success is only the fleeting illusion of this transient world. Scant respite in the hereafter. The sufferings of purgatory cease each Shabbos, even for the wicked. However, there's a certain special place in Gehenna for Shabbos desecrators. Their punishments are interrupted only in proportion to one's Shabbos observance. Meaning, let's say a guy, no matter what he did, was so scrupulous about honoring Shabbos, they give him wide coffee breaks. Shabbos breaks upstairs. Because he's somebody whose soul, right, it relates to Shabbos. Shabbos can protect him. He's bound to Shabbos. Somebody who does not have such a rapport with Shabbos, Shabbos is not reality to him, he cannot benefit from the pauses and the menucha of Shabbos in purgatory. Hence, if one's lifetime would do malacha, if in one's lifetime one would do malacha an hour before the end of Shabbos, the sufferings of Gehenna would return upon that person that amount of time before the end of Shabbos. So it's within your best interest to keep well past your bigger time. There's a famous story with the Hasidim tell the story of the Chose Milublin, one of the prime Talmidim of the Noam Elimelech, that he would be marich his Sudash Lishitz well into Sunday morning.
Mm-hmm.
And one time there was an angry rapping at the window behind his seat, and they peeked and they saw that the Satan was there himself going, I gotta turn those furnaces on, man. Okay.
That's good.
So he was holding it up for everybody upstairs, or rather downstairs, by what was going on at his tish. Okay, so we said no peace from the sufferings of Gehenna. For those who do not keep Shabbos at all, there is no respite from the relentless sufferings of Gehenna. On the eve of each Shabbos, heavenly voices reverberate throughout the 7 fiery spheres of the netherworld. Suspend the punishments of the wicked, for the Holy King approaches. This day is sanctified and protects all, even the wicked. Suddenly, all punishments cease, and a respite is granted even to the wicked. However, for those who during their lifetime desecrated the Shabbos, there is no peace. The anguishing fires of Gehenna never cease. As the others ask, why are those different from the rest? Why do they suffer without pause? The bearers of judgment reply, these are the wicked who denied the dominion of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They transgressed the entire Torah because they did not observe the Shabbos. That's the Zohar HaKadosh in Shemos. Okay, man, I hope to finish this up soon because there's, it's important. It's important. I don't want to dismiss it, but there's halachot to learn. Let's not forget we're here to learn halachot. Okay, Chilul Shabbat is akin to idolatry. Shabbos desecration and idolatry are commensurate in severity, and each one weighs equally against all of the other commandments of the Torah. Shabbos is a symbolic covenant between the Holy One and us forever. Therefore, while one who violates any of the other Torah commandments becomes identified with the wicked of Israel, Shabbos desecration is a far graver sin. One who openly desecrates the Shabbos is likened to an idolater and is reduced to the status of a Gentile for halachic purposes, meaning even though God sees him as a Jew, of course, and he's still a Jew and he has a Jewish soul, everybody is commanded to basically treat him as a non-Jew because he has essentially taken himself out from the community. That's the Rambam in Hilchot Shabbat. And that's this point over here, that he has a loss of a Jewish identity. Certain mitzvot stand out from the others in that they're intrinsic to the Judaism of a Jew. One of these is Shabbos. By the way, we're talking about people that opt out. Obviously, we live in a time where there are many, many Jews that unfortunately do not really have any conscious connection to Shabbos. Okay, it's just important to note that we're talking about people that knowingly violate and desecrate. And even those people, if you think that you can help them out and talk them into things and help them see things another way, you don't have to be so nasty. Shabbos is essential to Judaism. Without it, one can no longer be identified as a Jew. The wine and the shechita of a Machal Shabbos has halachic implications, meaning somebody who violates the Shabbos, right, who openly desecrates the Shabbos, is likened to an idolater, and therefore halachically he has the status of a Gentile for all halachic purposes. Therefore, wine touched or handled by a Machal Shabbos assumes the same status halachically as wine touched or handled by a Gentile. And similarly, the shechita, the ritual slaughter of a Machal Shabbat, is totally non-kosher. Okay. Loss of a child, Rahmana Litzlan, during one's lifetime. Chazal state that one who desecrates Shabbos is subject to the severe punishment of karet, which is excision. The karet punishment can result in one's untimely death as well as the loss of his children during his lifetime, lo aleinu. The following are comments on the serious topic, loosely translated from the works of the Chafetz Chaim. It is truly astonishing how people can totally disregard this danger. Certainly if a stranger would assault one's child, would not the father harbor deep animosity towards the assailant? All the more so if the child was seriously wounded as a result of the attack and required extended medical care. Even if the victim was financially compensated in full, the feelings of anger and enmity would simmer for a long time. Yet the Shabbos desecrator places himself and his own children in mortal danger by risking the retribution of karet, and does so with hardly a thought of the terrible consequences of his actions. And if one's children should indeed, Rahman al-Itzlan, perish as a result of these sins, how many hot and bitter tears of guilt would the parents shed over the loss of their dear child? How much bitter pain and suffering the parents would endure for eternity because of this tragedy. And if the Almighty, in His great mercy, substitutes the punishment of death with the decree of abject poverty, is this not also a terribly harsh fate to bear? Okay. Much effort is, I just want to make a note. It seems, I can personally say from my own Shabbos keeping career, that the more and more I learn Hilchot Shabbos, the more I realize that there's correct ways of doing things, and I can amend the mistaken ways that I've done in the past, or the things that I weren't so careful about, which means that I am actively improving my Shabbos, and I can also, in reflecting on, now that I have an understanding of how my Shabbos observance was less than it should be, I can do tshuva for that. And when I do tshuva for that, I can have in mind also, on behalf of all of Am Yisrael, the awareness of Shabbos that I have and how I'm growing, and my awareness of that Shabbos isn't what it used to be, and the tshuva that I have to be on behalf of all of Am Yisrael, and to have the benefits of, to inform Am Yisrael, to infuse them with an awareness and a more likely future possibility of keeping, to open them up to Shabbos. As I grow, it's b'shem kol Yisrael, and I'm doing it on behalf of everybody else, and somehow, on the potential level at least, I'm taking Am Yisrael up with me. And in the tshuva that I'm doing, to have in mind to alleviate all the tzaras of Am Yisrael, both collectively and individually, for the lack of Shabbos observance that exists. So, meaning, in thinking about these dark things, I just want to focus that also we can be empowered. So really, instead of focusing on the negative, it's important to be aware of the negative, and in so doing, as we grow, we can try to have in mind to share the positive effects. Much effort is required for the study of Shabbos and its numerous laws, yet the goal is well worth the trouble. The effort will reap rich returns. Understanding the nature of the malachos will dispel the confusion that can surround the halachos of Shabbos, and will help one achieve the highest standards of Shabbos observance and its great rewards. So that was his initial introduction. That was the first introduction, the importance and the ramifications of Shabbos observance. How are we doing for time?
How are we doing for time, man?
Fine. I got. Okay, great. So that's just enough time to start. Now our second introduction, which is an introduction in terms of malacha, right? We know that Shabbos observance revolves around the 39 malachot. We got to understand what a malacha is. There's so many misconceptions about how we relate to the concept of malacha, which literally means work. Okay? Malacha and work, distinctions and comparisons. Malacha is properly defined as, for the purposes of Shabbos observance, okay? Any one of the 39 categories of primary labors in the building or functioning of the Mishkan, okay? From which all prohibited activities of Shabbos are derived. That's the root of it all. We're going to be coming back to this over and over and over again, at least 39 times. Yet this fundamental principle of Shabbos is the subject of misunderstanding and widespread confusion. It's important to examine and search for the root of these misunderstandings, and this is the first step required for clarification. A, dispelling the common misconceptions. There seem to be three common misconceptions about what working on Shabbos means. Working means employment, some people think, right? Or it could mean to toil and labor in a physical activity. or working means using modern technology for some reason, right? In a post-electric age, if it's electric somehow, it's right. Okay, however, basic knowledge of halacha will easily dispel all of these misconceptions, as shall be explained below. Misconception number 1, employment. To many people, work refers to one's employment. To them, a Shomer Shabbos is simply one who does not go to work on Shabbos. Don't go to work. You can stay at home. Unfortunately, being a true Shomer Shabbos is not so simple. Staying home from work does not guarantee proper Shabbos observance. Ironically, some people are more prone to do malacha while at home than at work. So we got to understand what this malacha stuff is. For example, it is quite possible to go to work on Shabbos without actually engaging in a single malacha. Meaning, you're not supposed to work on Shabbos, but that doesn't mean you're doing malacha. Theoretically, I could go watch a field for somebody, right? And make sure that right. And it doesn't mean that I'm necessarily doing any malacha, but I'm working.
Waiters.
Right?
Waiters and
Caterers, rabbis.
They should be like-
My father said he doesn't want to be a rabbi because he doesn't want to work on Shabbos. Okay. Okay, so it's quite possible to go to work, as we're saying, on Shabbos without actually engaging in a single malacha, although actually doing so is a serious transgression of various rabbinic ordinances. I don't know how the rabbis and the caterers get away with it. No, we'll have to talk about the distinction. Consider the following examples. A Shomer Shabbos office manager or store vendor would never consider the thought of working on Shabbos, even though he could probably conduct his business almost as usual without doing a single malacha. He could, theoretically, ride a taxi or bus to work, check inventories, manually of course, not by the computer or other electronic equipment. He can stock shelves. He can negotiate transactions. He can sign documents with his left hand. I mean, these are all things that theoretically he could do within the letter of the law. We're not saying that any of this stuff is okay. We're going to talk about it. But, right, he's still avoiding malacha. He's transgressing Shabbos, but he hasn't done a malacha. Okay? He can sign documents with his left hand. Telephoning orders, operating computers, and typing and ringing up purchases could all be done by non-Jewish employees under his, auspices, and he hasn't done a malacha. Although all these are serious we have to understand why, because we're still confused. We don't know what a malacha is, right? Although all these are serious transgressions of isurei derabanan, which are rabbinic ordinances, none are a malacha midioraisa. Okay, so we'll see that one of the main important skills to have when it comes to Hilchot Shabbat is to differentiate between what are the rabbinic laws as opposed to the dioraitas, the laws directly from the Torah. And it's not because, it's not because that the rabbinic laws are not as important or not as binding, but because the way that they interact, and to understand, also to understand the method to what looks on the outside like madness. When you don't understand what's going on, it's important to understand what, the Rabbanan and the Daraita, so you start to understand and not get confused. Okay, it should be noted here that a storekeeper or entrepreneur who conducts regular business on Shabbos is nevertheless considered a full-fledged Mechal Shabbos. Somebody who says, hey, the rabbis, I don't see eye to eye with the rabbis, but I certainly don't violate what it says in the Torah, he's still a Mechal Shabbos. By contrast, and by the way, that's on the biblical level, he's Mechal Shabbos, because the Torah empowered the Rabbanan to define the extent of Shabbos observance and the Kiddush of Shabbos. Okay? By contrast, while at home, one is prone to do any of the following without realizing that a malacha midioraita is being violated. He's preparing a cup of tea by pouring water from a hot kettle or urn directly onto a tea bag or a slice of lemon, and that's the malacha of bishul, which means cooking. If he peels an egg or an orange to be eaten much later in the day, that's the malacha of sorting, called borer. If he opens mail, that's the malacha of korea, tearing. If he combs his hair, or the hair of his kid, it's gozes, which is shearing. All on the level of some of these are derabanan, maybe some of these are deraisa. Tighten a loose drawer handle. No, actually, some are, whatever, we'll get into it. These are just examples at this time. We're not expected to understand really anything, okay? Tighten a loose drawer handle or doorknob is the malacha of bona, which means building. So, this innocent kind of thing that you're doing over the course of your day on Shabbos at home, which is not any toil, it improves your day, it's fun, you do a problem just tightening the handle on your drawer, and that's a malacha. A woman might do the following: fillet a fish, which is also sorting. Dicing salad vegetables for later in that day is the malacha of grinding, called tochen. Tearing off a sheet of paper toweling from the roll is mechatech, which is measured cutting. Tweezing her eyebrows would be gozes, which is shearing. Applying lipstick is either mimachek, which means to smooth, or tzovea, which means to color. These are all names of melachot. Okay, cutting or filing her fingernails is the malacha of gozes again, which is shearing. And to sprinkle water over a stain on a dress is melabin, which is scouring. Meaning all these seemingly innocent acts that improve or enhance her experience, you would think she wants to do on Shabbos, is a violation of Shabbos. And it's so subtle. We got to know, meaning, what do you do when you're faced with that situation? What are the things that you can do, the things that you have to avoid at all costs? And ultimately also, really the main thing is to inculcate within us a type of mindset on Shabbos that we know intuitively things to avoid or to stop and think before we do these automatic actions. That's the hardest part. That's getting there. Meaning a study of this, meaning it changed fundamentally for me an awareness on just a basic level that you go through Shabbos in a different modality, that you're aware that there's types of actions that you're slow to do or you have questions about before you violate, because till you get there, it's very, very subtle, and it's almost impossible that you won't do something by accident or unwittingly. Okay, that's why we're doing this. Yeah, you'll see, by the way, when we can start getting traction, I'm telling you, for me, every single piece in every chapter, every session, I would walk away going, we're tweaking, like I'm learning something new that's practically applicable. Okay, the connection between these common household occupations and the concept of work may seem remote, yet each of them is a malacha, all done in the comfort and privacy of one's home. We will continue next time, Be'ezrat Hashem. Baruch Hashem li'olam, amen ve'amen. Thank you very much. Amen.